This is the Jocko Underground Podcast, number 35. Echo Charles sitting here with me. And we missed a week of Underground. Apologies. And then I got reminded, we got reminded why we have the Underground, why we have JockoUnderground.com. The reason is because we realized a while ago that we don't control any of the platforms that we put our podcast out on. On top of that, we don't control the platforms that we interact with people on social media. We don't control those platforms. We don't control YouTube. We don't control the algorithms. We don't control any of the podcast feeds that are out there. So that's not a good situation to be in, where you have no control over your own destiny, where you have to bow to control of a greater entity that you have no control over. So we started this, what you're listening to right now, Jocko Underground, JockoUnderground.com. We started it. We actually started it. We did a podcast about the book 1984. Yeah. In light of the freedom of speech being impinged upon. I actually called you as driving home and said, "Bro, we need to come up with a contingency plan in case something happens." So we created this, and we created as a contingency. Right. And really, quite frankly, there had been very limited indicators that we would have to utilize the contingency. Well, for us personally, we did see other people get impacted, friends, associates, where all of a sudden they'd get banned, they'd get kicked off, they'd get demonetized, all these problems. Mm. Well, guess what just happened? I ended up getting shadow banned on social media. And I got on a specific social media platform, I got banned, or shadow banned, they called it, which is a weird thing because I didn't really know. And I kind of can look back now and people have explained to me, and I've looked at some, analytics, and seen that it was actually for a longer period of time than I initially thought. But someone finally, a couple people had mentioned it in comments, "Bro, you're shadow banned, you're shadow banned." And I'd think, well, okay, whatever. It's sort of like I appreciate people saying I wasn't blowing them off, but I didn't. Hey, how are you seeing this? You're seeing it, so you're writing your shadow ban. How? I didn't pay much attention to it. I should have listened. But then I finally started getting a couple people sending me videos of them searching for my name or scrolling through their timeline, and I'm not in it, and they follow me. Or typing my name into the search, and it doesn't show up unless you literally put @Jocko Willink. Right. Anything else, you put Jocko Willink, I'm not in there. That's called a shadow ban. And what's strange about this is, look, you all listen to me. You know what I talk about. I don't usually talk in any hyper political way. I sometimes do that on interviews, but as far as social, I'll do it on podcasts a little bit. But as far as social media goes, I rarely will post something that's, some political statement for a few reasons. Number one, I think that social media is a bad place to discuss politics. And if I want to discuss something political, I want to have as much time as I want to discuss it. And so that's why I'll usually do it on a podcast. But I'm not posting anything offensive. I really don't post a lot of stuff that's like, hyper controversial. Mm-hmm. Now, if I do, it's when I do post things that to express my political beliefs, normally, what I do is I do it in a way where it's an indirect message. Yeah. The message is, if you understand what I'm saying, the message is very clear. If you're looking for someone to ban, it might not hit your algorithm. Well, why do I do that? Well, there's a couple of reasons why I do that. Number one, because I want people to listen to what I'm saying. I want them to be able to listen to what I'm saying. And number two, if you're on the other side of my political beliefs and you hear me directly attack what you believe, you probably aren't going to listen to anything else I say. So I'd rather take an indirect approach, like I do with most things, because the indirect approach, proven, is a more effective way to communicate and to move forward. So kind of surprised me when I got shadow banned. So why did I get shadow banned? I'm not 100% sure, but here are my best guesses. And there are two things that stand out that I've done over the past couple months that I think could have made me a target. And like I said, I'm not exactly sure when I got shadow banned, but it could have been for a pretty long stretch because I don't pay a ton of attention to that kind of thing. I don't pay very close attention to, this thing got this many likes or this many views or this many followers. I don't pay a lot of attention to that. So when I went back and did a retro look at it, I realized, this has been going on for a while.
Yeah.
This has been going on for a while. So why did it happen? Here's my two best guesses. The first was I made that video of if I was president. This is what I would have said.
Oh, yeah.
So that speech that I made was me saying, hey, if I was President Biden and we were in the situation in Afghanistan and we had people, Americans killed, we had billions of dollars of equipment left behind, we had civilians left behind, American citizens left behind, American allies left behind, an unmitigated disaster. If that would have happened, to me and I was in charge, after I'd made all those mistakes, here's what I would say. I would say the following things. And I made that speech, and that speech was viewed a lot. And I did a bunch of media around it because a bunch of media outlets contacted me and wanted me to talk about it. I did a Fox News segment on it, which has 7 million views. The videos that I put out had a couple million all together. So, and then a couple other people, what is it called? Ripped it and put it on their own. And so it, probably got 8 to 10 million views viral. And then I'm including this with one of the two things, but then Daryl Cooper and I did an Unraveling podcast where we went hard and aggressive towards the situation that made that Unraveling podcast was like the #1 podcast in history for a while. Yeah. It went right to the charts. So between those two things, I'm sure I pissed some people off. And when you piss these people off, they can take action. The action that they can take is suppressing your voice. So what do you think? What's your assessment on that one?
Yeah, that's kind of scary when you put it like that. Meanwhile, literally that's what it is. And the kind of, for lack of a better term, scary part of it is I totally forgot about that. Yeah. I was like, hey, Jocko, that was a heavy speech. And then you guys... Oh, yeah,
you were super pumped on the speech, too, because you sent me a text that I'm ready to join the SEAL teams right now, and I'm a 43-year-old man. I was like, cool.
Yes, sir.
Let's rock and roll.
And then you and Daryl did that podcast, and I remember Daryl saying, "Hey, I've been getting a lot of things. Can you tell me the numbers?" I remember seeing the numbers, being like, "Damn, okay, dang, you guys kind of must have went hard." And I listened to a little bit of it, and it was gone. I was moving forward. I forgot about it.
I have a lot of military SEAL friends of mine were like sending me text, dude, God, yeah, hell yeah. And then special operations guys, hell yeah. And then military. Yeah. Everyone was fired up about that because we said what needed to be said. And the Biden, the if I was president speech, people were definitely fired up about that stuff. And so when you make a mark like that against, think about it. Think about that for a second. We know, the world knows, American politicians understand the power of social media. Yeah. They understand what it means when something goes viral. Mm-hmm. They understand those things. Mm-hmm. And when you have when you have the power, the seat of power, and you've offended them, what do you think they're going to do? Mm-hmm. And they also realize that you can gain momentum. They're like thinking, holy shit. I bet you some of those people on the other side watched that speech and went, God damn it. This hurts.
Yeah.
And they hear that and they go, you know what? We need to do what we can to suppress this individual's voice. Yeah. And so I think that very well may have been the thing that got me shadowbanned. By the way, I'm unshadowbanned now. By the way, we have troopers in the game inside these social media organizations that believe in freedom. That now that they're on it, I don't think it's going to happen again. Let me not say that. We should know quicker if it happens again. I should find out quicker because we have people that will report to us if this happens again.
Yeah, that's crazy too when you think about really the content of what you said. Obviously, I'm not going to go through the whole thing or whatever. It wasn't like, I mean, I guess at the end of the day, you were kind of taking a position or whatever, but that wasn't really what it was about. You were just essentially saying, hey, this is what I would have done. Straight up. It's a straight up hypothetical, literally.
Yeah. And then, being said.
Yeah. And so it does.
I made the administration look like idiots.
That's what I'm saying. At the end of the day, that's what it was. It wasn't something that's going to hurt like someone or cause like a riot or, there's a bunch of reasons that legitimate where you're kind of like, hey, I understand why you'd want to kind of at least like slow that guy down because even though he's freedom of speech, sure, like it could get kind of dangerous if it kind of goes beyond a certain point.
And then think about this. They go, who's this guy? And then they start pulling the thread. Yeah. And they go, wait a second, this guy.
Motherfuckers listening to him.
People are listening to him. Yeah. Oh, he's written a bunch of books that are very, very popular. Oh, he has this profile over here. Oh, but what can we burn him on? Yeah. How can we call this guy out for being, whatever, conspiracy guy? How can we do that? And then they're looking at my thing going, it's not going to work. What are we going to make stick to this guy? Gosh, he's got whatever, freaking 20 years of honorable military service. He's got businesses. He's got companies. He's got money. He's got he's going to be a hard target.
Yeah.
What are we going to do? We know what we got to do. Suppress him.
Yeah.
Get him, suppress him. That's what we're going to do. And that's what they did. And they did it for a couple months.
But yeah,
because when I went back and retro, I looked at my followers. There, I would normally get followers, every day.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's like, there was no followers this day. Oh, there was no followers that day. Oh, there was no followers that day. And again, it's not something I was looking at, but when I went and looked at it, they've put me on lockdown. So it's disturbing. That was number one. So that may have been it. Yeah. Those two things, I guess it's two things, but the combination of those two things, one of them probably caught their attention. The other one said that we need to suppress this guy. Yeah. We need to get him under control. Here's the other one, and I don't know if this one might even be scarier. Did another unraveling episode. And this unraveling episode that we did, me, Daryl Cooper, we had a guy on there named Brian Suits, who's he's a veteran. He was in Iraq. He was in Bosnia, and he has his own podcast, and he's a kind of conservative guy. But whatever. Okay, cool. So we did a podcast about basically. I opened up this podcast, and what I opened up this podcast talking about was I was talking about the difference between strategic thinking and tactical thinking, which you've heard me talk about in all kinds of podcasts, and I talk about all the time from a leadership perspective, and explaining how strategic is long-term thinking and tactical is short-term thinking, and when you think strategic, that's what you need to do long-term to win. And then I explained that China is thinking strategic right now, and that is a little excerpt of what we are doing on the Jocko Underground podcast. So if you want to continue to listen, go to jockounderground.com and subscribe. And we're doing this to mitigate our reliance on external platforms so we are not subject to their control. And we're doing it so we can give you more control, more interaction, more direct connections, better communications with us, strengthen this legion of troopers that are in the game with us. So thank you. It's jockounderground.com. It costs $8.18 a month. And if you can't afford to support us, we can still support you. Just email assistance@jockounderground.com and we'll get you taken care of. Until then, we will see you mobilized underground.